Hello and welcome to the Downshift as we enter into the summer break. In this episode, we're going to be saying what summer break actually means for those who are not familiar with Formula One as much. We're going to talk a little bit about tyre testing, and then as we're coming into what's known as silly season, just talking through contracts and some of the team announcements that we're hoping to see over the next 3 weeks. Welcome to the Downshift. As we said, we're getting into the summer break. And so for that, what does summer break actually mean? Happy, I'll throw it over to you to introduce what we're talking about in regards to summer break and what that means to the teams, the drivers and the fans.
Thanks, mate. I had no idea who you were going to throw to then, but I will give it a go. So summer break in Formula One is not just a casual break like people tend to go on holiday or whatever. This is a mandated stop work by the FIA. So it's 14 days. The teams are really not allowed to do anything. So I don't think they'd be expecting staff at the office. Just as a bit of an example, no design, development, manufacturing of current or future cars can be done. No use of wind tunnels or CFD, anything like that. There's no operation or assembly of cars. There's no meetings, discussions by phone or email, on-track testing, booking, travel, blah, blah, blah. So the list goes on. But I think the list is just designed to be comprehensive enough to ensure that no one goes to work for 14 days. They're just trying to stop the teams from spending too much money. This is all about a cost-cutting exercise.
So this isn't a holiday where you can go away and then, check your phone every 5 minutes and answer emails, is it?
Not supposed to, no. I mean, I know the drivers will be sunning themselves on yachts in Monaco and flying around and doing whatever, playing paddle with each other, I think. But as to what senior management are sneakily doing behind the scenes, we can only guess, but not supposed to be working.
This is where the FIA strictly monitors this. So this is audited. So Bernie Collins was explaining a little bit of how this works. So essentially, Schwags, to that point, is you are not allowed to even have your laptop. Most of the team who are going on summer break will leave their computer at the office and then come back in 2 weeks' time, happily not to have a whole bunch of emails that they have to answer because everyone else has done exactly the same thing. This was something that was introduced back in 2009 by the FIA, to Huppy's point, to reduce costs, so taking some of the cost out of racing, but also to promote staff wellbeing. When you think about it, you've got team personnel who essentially do 80-hour weeks from week to week during race weekends, and you've got global travel for 24 races. So it takes an absolute toll on everyone involved. And so it's to be able to create some fairness across that. But the FIA actually do audit this, and they look at communication logs, they look at access records to see who actually has been on site to each of the campuses as well.
So is this when the sale of burner phones goes through the roof?
I think so. And VPNs are used and all that sort of thing.
Well, you'd think so, yeah.
So for Christian Horner right now, it's just business as usual.
Mostly WhatsApp messages, yeah.
Do they monitor? Do they monitor the the nursery purchases and the gardening stuff?
Gardening leave?
Well, Bill will be.
Buys a few roses to plant.
Based on his pay packet, he'd actually have a gardener, wouldn't he?
A couple of slabs of Red Bull.
A couple of slabs of Red Bull.
Yeah, but it's all designed to stop performance-related work. So they still do allow some tasks like admin, some marketing, facility maintenance and cleaning, whatever. But all of that stuff is not related to developing the car.
Yeah, it's essentially anything that's around the car. I mean, even say, for instance, the wind tunnel, we can do maintenance on the wind tunnel, any sort of emergency repairs, which are essential, and the FIA has to give permission.
They could probably wash the car, clean the windscreen, do that sort of stuff, but that's about it.
So probably the biggest thing that they can do is probably contract negotiations, isn't it?
And that's why it's called silly season, because this is where all the discussions happen behind the scenes. As to Huppy's point, the drivers are sunning themselves on yachts and playing paddle with each other, that behind closed doors, managers are having conversations with teams, drivers are meeting up with team principals and potentially negotiating what the next couple of years might look like. And look, as we get into the tail end of the podcast, we'll talk about there's a few drivers who have contracts which are expiring at the end of this year. So there is the opportunity where we may see some changes and hopefully get some announcements prior to coming back to the Grand Prix in Holland.
So do we have our yacht tracker app activated, and do we know where they all are at the minute, including the managers, to see who's in which bay and where they're going to talk to?
Yeah. Where's Toto's plane now?
Well, not near Max apparently. So.
No, not anymore. Max has confirmed that he is staying at Red Bull for next year. So, so all the press has been quietened, and there's no more scuttlebutt around where Max might be going for 2026
For now.
For now,
a year is a very long time in Formula One, as we all know.
I mean, I noticed here in our notes here, it says marketing. What teams can do, marketing projects or promotional events using outdated car models. So they're not even allowed to use current car models. Like, they're very strict on, let's roll the car across the floor and, take a few photos of it for marketing purposes.
Well, you would have, you may recall Lewis Hamilton when Ferrari had a filming day, and he was being asked by the media, how did the car feel? How was it on track? And he said, no, we were doing filming. So he had to be very specific, because the FIA is really, they knuckle down on any time spent in the car. And if there is anything where they're getting some sort of advantage in regards to telemetry data and the like, that can be penalised, it can be fined, you can lose points and be excluded from races. So it was quite funny that Lewis was saying to the media, no, it was a filming day.
Well, but when it comes to Ferrari, if you're doing low speed, driving around a track, that pretty much is the high performance testing, isn't it?
Scraping the floor around.
Yep.
I don't know how much value. I mean, obviously they get to do quite a few laps on these filming days, and they're doing mostly. They're not doing full on laps, but they do some performance stuff. And I know it's a bit of the teams wanted it because they wanted to do promotion and filming. So they wanted to get away with getting current drivers in current cars for another day or so. But with the wind tunnel testing, simulators, all the CFD technology these days, I don't know how much benefit they get out of the test days anymore, but I think they'll just take anything they can get to try and improve the car.
As we speak about test days, we finished up for the Hungarian Grand Prix, but there were some drivers who had a little bit more work to do, as we had some Pirelli tyre testing at the Hungaroring, where Pirelli are now getting ready for the 2026 season and testing some of the newer compounds that they're looking to introduce for the new regulations. So we had Alpine, McLaren, Ferrari, and Racing Bulls on track doing some testing. So we're seeing those tyres being put to their limits through the hotter conditions around the Hungary Grand Prix track.
So is this a chance for me to ask some dumb questions about this to enlighten our audience?
Strap in.
Love to hear dumb questions. Roll them out.
So my question is this: I know we talk about the tyre testing you're talking about here. So we're talking about tyre testing of tyres for next year's program.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
That's what we're testing right now. But they're not testing it with the current car because they're not allowed to use the current car. They can test it with older cars. We're going all right so far?
Yeah, you're doing really well.
Right.
They're modified 23 and 24 spec cars. So what they're doing is they're trying to simulate the downforce and the performance that they are expecting out of the new 2026 cars, which will have the new regulations. So it's more about downforce and getting sort of the energy exertion that's going to go through the tyres.
So this is testing for the benefit of Pirelli to know how their tyres are going to perform next year. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the teams don't get to run new cars. The drivers get to do laps around Hungaroring, but the teams are given fairly strict run plans. So they're told, look, we want you to go out and run full tanks at full pace for 20 laps, or half tank tyre saving for 10 laps. And what they'll do is then use that data to see how the tyres perform, how they degrade. Pirelli are trying to meet some targets to make sure there's good racing, and that's guided by the FIA. So the teams don't necessarily get a huge amount of knowledge out of this, but I know the drivers are keen to get a bit of a feel for, if this tyre ends up being close to what they come out with next year for 2026, it's good to do, in the case of these test drivers, well over 100 laps. I think the top driver of the day, and the most number of laps, was from Paul Aaron from Alpine, did 159 laps, and the others did over 140. So it's a hell of a lot of laps on new tyres for next year, which they'd be happy to run.
So as a team, you would be better off being involved in this to be one of the drivers that's testing even if the tire's not exactly the same, it's going to be, it's moving in that direction compared to what it was previously. You know, we talk about what 25 mil narrow at the front and 30 mil at the back. So we're already talking different,
Slightly smaller, narrower.
slightly smaller size specs. Yeah. So that being the case, then some of these teams would be pretty keen to be involved in this testing, I imagine.
Absolutely. But the teams are put through in like a rotating roster. So there'll be a certain number of test days every year. Each team gets the opportunity to be involved in the test days. Some will be in dry tyres in warm weather. I think the next one, correct me if I'm wrong, Silverstone. Yeah, so they'll be focusing more on wet and intermediate tyres, whether they went
God
to
knows
track.
Of course, it's
why.
going to be wet. Like,
Well, they're hoping it's going to rain at Silverstone. Good chance.
But they never get to use the wet tyres anyway. I mean,
The wet tyres, I know.
So,
Bit of a
the
joke.
cars that you're using now are based on like next year's regulations. The cars are supposed to be smaller. Does that mean that the cars they're using now are then also shorter in length than the current cars as well, based on a couple of years ago?
The 23 one might have been, but they're more concerned about the actual downforce levels of the car
Okay.
because they're expecting that there'll be lower downforce in 2026. So they'll be slightly modified cars. It's just an estimation, but it's just got to be close enough that Pirelli can look at tyre wear over a stint and they get all the data from the team so they can put that towards manufacturing tyres that will race well.
Well, one last dumb question. Who's deciding that the cars from 23, 24 are similar to what's expected to come out next year? Is that an FIA decision?
it's not about the cars being the same as the spec for
Not
2026.
the same, but
It's more about them not being able to test using the current car. So essentially, they don't want them driving the 2025 car to be getting more data, more telemetry, more testing in the car that they're driving right now. So what they're doing, to Huppy's point, is it's not about the car. It's about the downforce and the exertion on the tyres. So they're setting them up to get similar downforce that they're expecting out of the new regulations. They're testing for tyre deg, and they're testing for the energy that goes through the tyres, how they heat up, how they degrade, how they perform. And Pirelli then take those tyres and will do an autopsy on them afterwards, a drill through them to see how much rubber's gone, what the chemistry in the rubber is as well.
is it likely to be next year that at the start of the season when the new specs and the new regs come out and the new cars are actually on track that there could be still problems? I mean, I know they test to avoid those problems, but is that
Wouldn't
something that could
expect
happen?
so. No, because you look at the current tyre performance. I don't think they'll vary too much from that, and they've had a ton of experience now, which is why when you go to different tracks, at the start of each round, Pirelli will come out or FIA and say, these are the minimum tyre pressures that you can run at each track. And it does vary track to track because tracks where there's a lot of really high load running, they'll vary the minimum tyre pressure, which will protect the tyre and the tyre wall if there's a lot of deflection under load. So there's less risk of having like a blowout or a tyre explosion or something like that. So that Pirelli's pretty good at that. They know how the tyres are going to perform. And like, year to year, we don't really see a lot of variation in the construction. It's more about the compound for grip and degradation and how they heat up and cool down, I think that's what they're trying to optimize.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you look at the tyres this season, they've been almost flawless. There's been no blowouts. There's no delaminations on them. They've gone further than most people expected in terms of their run times as well. So, I mean, Pirelli's done a bang-up job with their tyres for this season. Now, whether that's equates to the best racing the FIA wants or less excitement and things like that, but in terms of tyre usage, they've got the mix right.
And presumably that's a variable that the teams have to deal with next year coming into new regs. They've got the car. They reckon they've got their batteries and their downforce and their whatever aero kits all worked out. And they go, well, now we've got to make sure that we either cool the tyres correctly, like McLaren have been well known for, or manage our tyres. So that's just another variable. Like whatever the tyre ends up being, they've just got to factor that into their
One of the many
start of
variables
26 when they're just trying to iron everything out as quickly as they can to get as close to the front as they can.
And they'll be testing all of this stuff with like, they've got, with their wind tunnels, they've got like a road-based tunnel. So they'll have their own versions of tyres that they'll put on there. They'll all their CFD analysis because the tyres will be narrower. They'll have what they think the tyres will be like. They might just use current compound, but they'll have narrower tyres in their sim. So they'll be doing simulation running with sim drivers and the real drivers later in the year and doing a heap of work to try and make sure that when they hit testing, they want to know what they're expecting to have under them. But you don't want to get out there and have like some weird surprise because the tyres perform nothing like you thought they were going to perform. So I think the teams will have a pretty solid idea when they hit the track already.
So for those who are listening and wondering what CFD is, it's computational fluid dynamics. And this is the mathematics behind how air flows over the vehicle and through the vehicle, interacts with the tyres, the brakes, and the likes. This is all in the supercomputers that they're running these simulations on. And so when you think about it, from each race, you hear about the test drivers who are going to be in the sim overnight for the next day. They're running sims, but they're also doing the CFD analysis. And they're doing this on the new cars to see how they think that's going to work. And that's where you see when they go on the track with the rake on the front, those big grills, that's taking the real world feedback and then trying to match that up with the simulation as well so that they can see how close that is.
It's based on the fact we've just had 5th of August, 6th of August, 2 days of testing. First day, no problems at all. Now, Christian, I believe you there was a slight what should we call it? Hiccup on the second day. If you want to take us through that one.
Yeah, so look, and I'll put the image up there, which is a bit of a blurry shot, which has been taken from television because there's no official footage of it. But we did see Franco Colapinto after 25 laps bin the car into the wall. Now, Pirelli's F1 chief Mario Isola has been very quick to make the statement that it has nothing to do with the company's tyres. But yeah, so
would that make a driver error then, Christian?
Well, look, you read into between the lines and just determine what you think that is. But it obviously saying the tyres are fine. But again, Franco continues to be an expensive commodity within the Alpine race team.
Nearly a liability. So he's really not having a good stint, is he, after taking over from Paul McDowan, who's probably not feeling quite as bad now. So
I think you mean Jack Doohan, but
Jack Doohan, sorry.
Yeah, I know Mick's not getting in there.
Mick, no, sorry, Mick. I was being very complimentary to Mick then. Jack Doohan, yes.
Yeah, so and look, that's where Pierre Gasly didn't get to do any testing in Ricard because of the crash there. But so it gives us a good opportunity to then move on as we start to talk about what we're looking at for contracts and team announcements. And
who's replacing Franco?
Well, that begs the question. If we look at drivers without contracts past 2025, both Franco Colapinto and Jack Doohan are contracted till the end of this year. So both of them sitting there with 0 points apiece.
But Jack has cost them way less in damages so far, if we want to compare the two.
It's easier when you're not in the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Who's had more track time?
Still costing less, though. In the car or out, still less.
Everyone thought Franco was going to do better than Jack. I really don't think that's the case at all. He's had a couple of spots where he looked okay, but when you look at what Jack did as well, he showed glimpses of doing well at the same time. So what do you do? Alpine's in a world of trouble. They're lucky they've got Gasly, who's been really reliable, but as to what they do for next year, I think Franco's definitely not guaranteed a seat in that team.
No, and we looked at the stats a few episodes ago, and we actually saw that it's marginal in regards to qualifying and finishing. Franco was, I think it was 0.25 ahead of Jack. So again, you're splitting hairs, and if it is costly, then you want someone who's not going to bin the car, even though they do bring a lot of sponsorship dollars to the team.
And, we've seen this season's been a great example of how long it can take for someone who's new to a team, new to a car, to get up to speed. Lewis Hamilton, one of the best drivers F1's ever had, is struggling in that Ferrari. We saw Liam Lawson.
Punchy.
Didn't get much of a go in the Red Bull. It was a very tough start for him, but he went into Racing Bulls, seemed to struggle initially early while he was getting used to the car, but like in the last 3 or 4 rounds, he's really starting to come on a lot stronger. I think he's found his feet. He's got his confidence in the car. It just takes some people some more time to get there. So don't think Alpine's given either Jack or Franco enough time yet.
Yeah, well, to your point in regards to Liam, he's scored points in the last couple of races. And and then even in Austria. So he's doing okay there. But Liam is another one which has only got a contract till the end of this year, along with his teammate Isaac, who's doing a much better job. He's performing really well.
To be fair, he's only 2 points ahead of where Liam Lawson is.
But he's been the consistent performer.
Yeah, he's been more consistent.
As far as qualifying pace, he's been really solid. So I think if we want to talk about Red Bull and racing bulls, Yuki sounds like he'll be out of the drive next year. He just hasn't been able to get close enough to Max, and he won't have Honda backing anymore next year. So I would think it's highly likely that Isaac will probably replace him in the Red Bull next year.
Yeah, I think that's
the rumour.
Yeah.
But the question is then, will they keep Liam Lawson and give him another contract, even if it's just a 1 year contract, given he's actually started to pull some consistent performances through towards the middle part now?
I would think so. Why would you pull him now? I think you see him out to the end of the year the way he's going at least, and then maybe bring someone else younger in to get them ready for the Red Bull car if they need to find another driver down the track.
And you've seen Red Bull, who petitioned the FIA to have Arvid Lindblad have his restriction for being 18 lifted on his super license, and that was done. So he was given his super license before his 18th birthday. So we'll see Arvid come in and do some FP1 testing in the second half of 2025. So there is a lot of talk around Arvid actually coming in as one of the drivers for 2026 into the Racing Bulls team, which would support your proposition there, Huppy, of Isaac going up into the Red Bull. I
think that's probably looking like the most likely scenario in shuffling in that Red Bull garage. But they obviously rate Lindblad pretty highly because they wanted to be able to get him in the F1 car. So it'd be interesting to see how he performs in these practice sessions.
So then if we look at it, you've still got Mercedes, both their drivers, George and Kimi, only contracted to the end of this year. Now, surely you'd be locking George away, and Kimi is the best performing rookie out there.
Right. Best performing rookie in the best car to be in as a rookie as well. But
still, you can still be Colapinto and bin it in the wall every second week.
I mean, I cannot see them not giving George, what he's asking for with a contract extension for maybe a couple of years contract and keeping Kimi on. Can you see them going for anyone else?
Who?
Exactly. They've got two known quantities. They've invested in Kimi. They know his potential. Max's first season was full of mistakes and a few crashes. They know it takes time for young talent to develop, and he's really young. So I think they'll keep him for next year.
If they wanted anyone, wouldn't they just bring Bottas back? I mean, but he's got the experience to pick up a,
Well, he can't.
Drive,
but rumour has it he's already signed with Cadillac.
Well, I think he's signed with Cadillac.
That's the thing. Rumours he's going in a different direction, which is good for them, obviously, but
is that from a trusted source?
Yeah, I saw his Instagram.
Valtteri himself.
He was opening a Cadillac door and going, "Look at this seat, isn't it lovely?"
Polishing it.
Well, Valtteri is a Mercedes number 3. He's still contracted with, not contracted, but he's still on the payroll of Mercedes at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think the talk was if he goes to Alpine that it's going to be a loaner, but he's still going to be owned by Mercedes.
The rumour is if he gets loaned out to replace Franco or someone if he's not performing later in the year, yes.
Right. And Toto's already gone on record a number of times saying that he wants Valtteri in a seat for next year. If it's not the Mercedes, he's a driver that deserves to be in the seat. So it makes sense for him to get into a car, any car.
I think he's good for the grid. They need someone with a bit of character in it because most of the drivers are a bit stiff at the moment. They need someone with a bit of character and a bit of Yahoo yob about them.
Oh, I think Lewis is pretty happy at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
He seems very cheery.
You obviously had a different conversation with him to end.
So we think Mercedes have locked away their drivers then? We reckon it's going to be George and Kimi?
I reckon so, yep.
They'd be silly not to. And the word out there is for George, it's not if, but when. You look at George, who's had 6 podiums this year, which includes 1 race win. He's beat Hamilton 2 out of the 3 years they've been teammates, and he's leading Kimi Antonelli 172 points to 64 points. Yep. So it's rumoured that essentially they're circling around a contract that will take him to the end of 2027 and be worth roughly about 30 million per year. So not a bad pay packet.
No, he'd have to be in the top 4 drivers this season so far.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You've got Oscar, Lando, you probably have Max in there, or Leclerc and Russell. They're probably the top 5. They're the standouts, really.
And it's hard when you've got McLaren being so dominating to sort of, because there's only really one spot left on the podium.
Yeah, on the podium. And
so
he's managed to
between
get
5
there,
of them or 3 of them.
Their car hasn't been great every round, but like George has been great every round. He's always got the most out of the car.
So we've talked about Valtteri going to Cadillac. We've seen Cadillac, and this is the first of the team announcements, or the first announcement for Cadillac, with Tommy Hilfiger being the official apparel partner and lifestyle sponsor. So, so it's the first big sponsorship signing for Cadillac as a high fashion American brand. Lockie, with being our fashion expert, your thoughts on Tommy Hilfiger?
Yeah, well, I mean, I found out they even make perfume as well last night, or fragrance. That's pretty good. Look, I'm not going to lie, it's not going to change my wardrobe. So that's not going to be a problem for me. But look, the fact that they've locked that away will be interesting to see whether they like how soon they actually announce their driver lineup. I think they've gone away from Checo now, haven't they? The rumor has it they were looking somewhere else.
Keep reading. They're still talking, or maybe not, or whatever. But I mean, it looks like Valtteri's pretty much locked in, and the firm favourite up until recently, I guess, has been Sergio, who I think his stock's probably risen a little bit, because of Yuki and Liam and their performance in the second Red Bull car. And he would be a great addition to that team. Like, he's fast, he's experienced, he can help build the car like Valtteri can and guide development. That pairing would be super strong, I reckon.
Well, question then, if he doesn't go there, where does he go?
Checo.
Because you think he's going to pick up a seat next season, but if he's not in Cadillac, then where will he end up?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Look,
so.
There's a couple of spots there at Alpine. Everyone else is basically contracted. Red Bull would be the only other option if he was to try and get back into that second seat, but would he want to? Maybe with Horner gone and a bit of restructuring, it could be a possibility, but no one's been talking about that. So I think he'd be pinning his hopes on the Cadillac drive pretty much.
And 12 months is a long time to be out of F1. And this is why Valtteri chose to, instead of doing any other racing series, chose to be a reserve driver for Mercedes. So he was there in the pits, in the paddock, so that he can continue to have those conversations. Checo has faded off into obscurity this year, so it is a long time.
And there's been a bunch of other drivers named in this little Cadillac circle, although I think you'd be feeling a bit left out if you weren't one of the drivers that are apparently talking to Cadillac at the moment.
When does Cadillac need to announce their drivers, or is there no real? Does that
March 2026,
the day before testing starts?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no. I don't think they're deliberately dragging it out for marketing purposes. I think it's just a case of,
but for sponsorship too. If you want to announce your driver, then announce a major sponsor. And hey, and they've come on board because they're bringing basically the sponsor over. You'll probably find they'll do it in the later half of this year.
I mean, if it helps them get sponsors, they'd probably want to get it done reasonably soon and lock that money away. Sergio has always carried a fair bit of sponsorship weight behind him as well. So, the negotiation won't just be with Sergio; it'll be with what sponsors can Sergio help attract. It's a whole big discussion and a package that they've got to look at, basically.
And I think the only thing that is probably holding Cadillac off here is the desire to have a US driver as well. And I mean, we've heard about that. They just can't find anyone who's going to be at that level to be able to race the Formula One. There was talk of Colin Herter, but he doesn't have a super license, and so you're not going to bring some back one of the previous US drivers because they couldn't cut it. So I think that's where they've clinged onto that hope that maybe they'd get an American driver, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen.
I thought IndyCar might be a field that they could look at to try and field a driver, but Alex Palou has just won the championship for the 4th time in a row, but he's not a national American anyway, I believe. So I don't know who they'd choose, but it surprises me that more people in IndyCar haven't tried to make their way more actively into Formula One. Maybe they just don't have the links with teams and management and so on, or they're happy earning reliable dollars over in the US rather than risking it all in F1. I don't know.
Well, it's also a lot of travel too.
Then you've got to turn left and right.
Travel would be tough, yeah. IndyCar has a lot of road courses, mostly road courses, I think.
There's only one name here I can see, Jack Crawford, who's, Aston Martin development driver.
Yeah.
Won 5 F2 races, but he might be under their wing a bit.
Well, I mean, they'll definitely have F2 options. You got Dragovic and Alex Dunn as well, but Joe Gonyu may have some Chinese money behind him, but I don't think he'd be a serious option for them. He'd be a cheaper option for sure than Sergio and Valtteri, but I don't know if they're in the
think that's what they're
business
going
of
for.
trying to save money at the moment.
Yeah.
No.
They'd be better off hitting it hard with big dollars.
Now, I've noticed there's only one thing left on this little list you've got down here, and that's one of your favourite topics. So do you want to talk about Christian Horner then?
I don't, but
Oh,
You sure? You've been banging on about him all week. Now's your chance. No, I'm joking. He hasn't mentioned him at all. But
yeah.
There have been a couple little rumours floating around about Christian returning to Formula One.
look, I as we were discussing the other night, is I don't see Christian Horner not returning to F1 in one way, shape, or form. We know that Ferrari is now off the table with Fred Vassar having his contract renewed and so extended. So that's locked him in and taken away any sort of rumours that Christian was talking to them. There is talk that with Cadillac, apparently Christian has been having some very deep and long conversations with Cadillac. So who's to say it wouldn't be such a silly idea for Cadillac to have someone with such pedigree, 20 years of building up a team from scratch. You saw the powerhouse that was created under his stewardship. So that's a potential there. Team, your thoughts on Christian Horner to Cadillac?
Would make sense for the experience. But I guess for them, they'd probably want a cultural fit as well. Maybe Americans to lead the team. Not sure. But I think Christian probably wouldn't want to return to a role where he didn't have some longer term buy-in or equity for some sort of exit, or to make some more value out of the transaction. He's not the sort of bloke. I don't think it'd just come back into a paid role that didn't have enough control, if you know what I mean. So depends what they're going to put on the table to have him.
the Alpine solution sounds a lot better at this point, considering they're potentially offering a stake and things like that. I think it's probably more likely he'd head that way.
Yeah, and there is rumour of Bernie Ecclestone backing Christian as well. And for those who the name sounds familiar, Bernie was the chairman and the head of Formula One management for a very long period of time and built up F1 to the point where he then sold F1 to Liberty Media for $4.4 billion. So Bernie's got a few bucks in the back pocket to support Christian. And apparently they're good mates, even though they've had their tussles in the past.
So this Otmar consortium, what would their angle be, or who are they looking to buy? Is it Alpine?
Now, get Christian to pronounce the full name first.
Nothing's been announced, obviously, but who's up for grabs?
Otmar Safnauer.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Well done.
I was listening to Otmar's podcast, and I mean, look, he's very vague in regards to it, but he claims to have a very strong business plan and backing from a large consortium, which also includes a automotive manufacturer and some high-powered dollars going behind that. He's talking about the potential where it's either introducing the 12th team to Formula One or buying one of the current F1 teams. So it's all very cloak and dagger at the moment. Otmar's not sharing anything in regards to it.
Is that what we're saying, or?
Could be Porsche, could be BMW.
Porsche can no longer afford it based on their current business model and finances. It's not going to be Porsche.
There's rumours that people who would love to see some of those brands come back into Formula One or come into Formula One. It's no one knows. He's thrown that out there as a nice little tete-a-tete and seeing what bites.
So if Otmar is looking at the 12th team, then that means they won't be on grid until 27, 28 at least. It'll take them 12 months to get approval.
I think it'll be a real struggle, because the amount of money that Cadillac had to tip in to make the teams happy just to get on the grid was ridiculous. And to then convince all the teams to dilute prize money again so quickly after Cadillac's just come in, that would be plan B, I would think. I think plan A would be it'd be cheaper to acquire an existing team, all the personnel, everything already there, that would be the option to go for.
So that's the Hail Mary.
Your plan B's, you don't want to go to plan B.
So with that, that brings us to the end of this episode of the Downshift. We're only doing one episode per week during the summer break, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode that drops, which will be on a Wednesday Australian Standard Time. Next week, we're going to be jumping into, we've talked a little bit about the new regulations, but actually going through what the new regulations mean for 2026, what the changes look like and what that might mean to racing, and then also some of the track changes for 2026 as we look at a new track being introduced and some of the tracks which are finding it a little bit difficult to fund a yearly foray into Formula One. So until then, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next lap. That's the checkered flag for this episode of the Downshift. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us in the paddock. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a lap. And hey, if we've earned it, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us climb the grid and reach more motorsport fans. Until next time, keep it fast, keep it fun, and we'll catch you on the next lap.